This show is sponsored by ODYS Global. Make sure that you do sign up and get a free $100 bonus by checking out ODYS Global's Age Domains or Done For You affiliate websites. Hi guys, and welcome to today's podcast where I have Michiel Grotenhuis. Call him Michael for short. I was overthinking that again, the pronunciation, but I'm just going to call you Michael, actually. To hell with it. But Michael is from Flatsite.com, which you can we'll go into in great detail in a moment, which they can build you basically fast websites, HTML websites and everything else, and we'll talk about the benefits of that and everything else that goes on with static websites. So first of all, what we want to do is find out a bit about your background though. What have you been doing like over the last 10, 15 years? What has brought you to then have Flatsite? First of all, just a bit of an introduction.
Yeah, so Michael, I started my first company when I was, I think, 16. I started doing web designing when I was, I think, 12, when I found out front page. There were really like shitty iframe websites with like JavaScript snowflakes and MIDI musics, That was my first experience with web, and I think if I look at back, in this archive.org, then I mean the sites that we built those days were really, really crappy. I started my first company when I was 16. I was like really into extreme sports. Was doing parkour, free running, did movies, commercials, stuff like that. I think we were in the Netherlands, where I was born. I think we were the first real group over there, and so I created a website. I tried to make a little bit of money out of that during my student time. And then when I was like 20, something like that, I was done with the school, and then I started some companies in IT. So a few stores. Those were like a brick and mortar stores, where you could physically, buy computers, repair your, really like local stuff. And then I was basically, I don't know, every opportunity I saw, I wanted to either invest or participate. It was a lot, and nothing was really, hitting off, because every month I saw like a new big opportunity. So, and then a few years ago, I was really more into like the web hosting kind of business. Sold that company, and then I did leasing for a while, but then I did computer leasing. So we purchased the domain computer.nl with a few friends, and computer.be, computer.lu, computer.shop, and on that we created like a shop. In Benelux area, it was not really familiar on IT leasing. It was done by big corporations, but there was nothing really for the consumer and for like the small businesses. And we found out that you could really hit a nice margin, because on a MacBook you cannot really make money. But we thought, okay, if this MacBook is like with a lease, it's like $30, I can easily make it $40 a month, and then I'm making, for like a term of like 3 years, I'm making 360 euros extra on this one MacBook.
Yeah.
So I got some money from the leasing companies because they were happy with the clients. I got some discount from Apple because I was buying a lot, and then this I did like for a few years, and then eventually I ended up at the group where I'm working right now as COO. And this is Zonat, and we have like a bunch of hosting companies. We run Hosting.co UK, yourwebsite.com, Hosting.uk. We operate, I don't know, roughly like 20 hosting brands, few local brands, few globally, and just try to make the best out of it. And we're really deeply involved in the whole WordPress community, the WordPress static sites. But I can tell you a bit more about it later. But that's I try to keep it brief, but
I think it's always good to know where you came from. I think most of the guests we've had have just all had very kind of weird and wonderful things they've done, and then eventually came to this point in their life. So I was curious to know what your what your background was. But onto Flatsite itself, and you mentioned that you interact a lot with the WordPress community, and static websites obviously load faster. There's obviously a problem, or not a problem, but with WordPress websites, some of the templates and stuff are just really bloated and clunky and shitty. And I'm assuming that is your unique selling point, is trying to make sure that these websites load a hell of a lot faster.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good thing. I really don't want to be salesy with you, Craig, because you might end up with a nice subscription of Flatsite. But but yeah, I mean, one of the benefits, of course, is that it's already rendering. I mean, what we basically created a very easy tool. It's converting a dynamic website of WordPress into a static version of your website, and the static clone you then push through FTP, meaning that normally, if you would load a website, it will be a bit slow because there is a database request with PHP. So every time a visitor goes to the page, then it will then render the page, and then eventually this will then be shown to the browser. So what we did basically is we created an output file that's just HTML, CSS, JavaScript. That's already exactly what the browser needs, and only that we upload. So that means that we are basically skipping a few steps of site rendering, and that will increase your site speed a lot, at least the whole server time, like the loading of the page and stuff like that.
So say for example, I was to jump onto Flatsite just now, and I've got my own website and it's on WordPress, and I join your platform and it does its stuff. I update a post, for example, in WordPress, press update, and does that automatically push that? Like, what is the time and frequency of me pressing update on the back end of WordPress to that actually appearing live on my static?
Yeah, so there is basically we're using a Git methodology. So basically, the first time you export your website, it can take up to like half a minute until a minute. After that, only the code that's been affected will then update. So that means that if you are updating a post, then maybe the sitemap is affected and this post is affected, and maybe, I don't know, the main index of your blog is then being affected. So only those 3-4 files will be updated. I don't know, it takes like 10 seconds, 5 seconds.
It's a lot faster. I was expecting to say it takes like 20 minutes or something for that to pull through. So
I mean, back in the days, there were methodologies of doing that, and I really read a lot of blogs about the static headless WordPress websites, and they often say like, yeah, if you update your website on a daily basis, you should not go static because it takes so long, and it's like, it doesn't.
So obviously, when I look through flatsite.com, your website, and I go to the who's it for, so agencies, developers, SEO experts, people using PBNs, and that type of thing. This is really, what people are using to get that kind of stuff, or to get that static website going. So I want to, obviously, agencies, developers, SEO guys will all use it for speed. The PBN side of it, I want to dig a little bit deeper into it, because I'm just looking at your packages as well, and I can see that you host unlimited websites, with certain amounts of storage on your different packages. If someone was going to host, say, 5 or 6 PBNs or 10 PBNs with you guys, and they wanted to use the static website for it, are they all clumped to the one server and one IP address, or is that stuff all like for people that have got PBNs?
Yeah, so to explain you the complete methodology about Flatsite is that it's you can use your own FTP and your own servers for the export. So basically, you can see like Flatsite as your complete development environment, like your MOMP or WAMP, that your local host. You can basically see it like that, but then completely in the cloud. And once you're done, you can then press a button and then it converts your website into static HTML. And this static HTML you can upload anywhere. So if you want to upload this to a onto like a different IP4 address on an FTP somewhere in I don't know where, in China, whatever. I mean, or if you want to deploy it to a CDN, that's totally up to you. So you can see Flatsite for the moment as like the complete stack, So everything you need to convert your website into a static website, plus a complete development environment, plus workflows and stuff like that. But eventually you can choose where you want to host it. So you can connect any server and it will then push it, through FTP to the server.
That's interesting. As I say, I assumed that they were hosted with you guys as well. So that was just an assumption I personally made. So it's good to iron that out. But again, going back to the static website over the WordPress website, we all know that WordPress websites get hacked a lot. We know that there's obviously page speed benefits of a static website over the PHP and everything else, and the database requests. But what else, other than the kind of added security? Well, can we touch on the security aspect of it first? So what is the security benefits to having a static website rather than WordPress?
Yeah, so with our methodology, and I wouldn't say there are different ways of getting your site static, right? I mean, if you're using a plugin and then you create like either like some caching, some caching plugins have like some kind of static functions.
Yeah.
But you still have the static website on the same site as your WP admin, for instance. And I'm just talking right now about WordPress. What we do basically is that your WP admin will be in the Flatsite environment, and only a static version or a static clone, of your site will be on the live website, on the public HTML side of things. So yeah, there is no WP admin, there is no database. So I mean, hackers, there is nothing for them to really hack. I mean, hypothetically, if you have like a shitty FTP password, like 123 or admin something like that, then definitely, yeah, your site can still be hacked. Yes, but I mean, if you would just use a strong password for your FTP, you can say basically that your site is unhackable, because the hacks that you normally have is either an exploit, it's like a shitty plugin that somehow is leaking, it's a WordPress that's not been up to date. And I really, sometimes I go a bit into sales mode, because I really don't want to go into sales mode. But what I like about this methodology, and why I'm also using it for my own website, is that I don't need to deal with those core updates anymore from WordPress, because every time I buy a nice plugin for a client and I buy a nice template, and then eventually this guy isn't, nothing to be found on TeamForest anymore. Either, I don't know, got a new job, or not interesting, or already made his fortune selling this plugin for $5, whatever. Yeah, then I'm always I always think these updates are a bit shitty. It often breaks, And now with this methodology, I don't care about my updates, because my basically my point of attack, that's my WP admin, it's on a different server. So
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. So obviously you guys provide this tool or service, whatever you want to call it, and it can be twisted in so many ways. So people have got WordPress, people have got e-commerce websites, people have got landing pages, they've got PBNs, they've got affiliate marketing websites, and everything else. So obviously, there's a wide range of purpose for having a WordPress website. Would you still recommend using something like this for a large e-commerce store, for example?
Yeah, well, so if you, for instance, are using WooCommerce and you really like WooCommerce, I mean, WooCommerce is something that requires a database. So you either then need to work with APIs to get things working, or you need to install plugins like Ecwid, or you need to use an embedded version of Shopify that's then linking to your site. So yeah, that can work, but you don't have the real WooCommerce experience, as maybe you are really sold by the idea of WooCommerce. I mean, there are alternatives. I think nowadays for all the plugins, I mean, let's tell you different. With Flatsite, all the dynamic stuff, it basically dies, right? There is no database, and with dynamic, I basically mean everything that requires a database interaction. There is no SQL database on the live websites anymore. Only in your development environment, you can play around, but once you render the website, that's how the website is. So you need to use third-party APIs, where back in the days we really wanted to make something, and then we say, we own this source code and we own it and blah blah blah. And nowadays it's like, if there's already a good software as a service functionality for that, for instance a good form, or a cool tool that you can implement, like, or a live chat widget or whatsoever, then why do you still want to have all this maintenance crap as well? So for that, I think we're going more into like an API economy instead of owning, want us to own the source code ourselves. So in that case, it's really easy to just use a third party for all the dynamic applications. So you can still use Flatsite for that, but then you need to be willing at least to think a bit different. Then you need to be open for having maybe a third party plugin for a forum, or maybe you need to go for a paid module for the live chat, for instance, instead of building something yourself or buying it one times at the Team Store or App Store. Yeah.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I was just curious to know how that could work for all the different purposes out there. I can obviously see a lot of benefits, but you've got to weigh up the pros. But the cons is that, as I say, I think having that static website though is always going to work in your favor. But in terms of the packages and stuff that you offer, you've got unlimited websites, you've got specific storage. You can deploy this stuff anywhere, and you get a custom backend domain. Now, what is the custom backend domain? What does that mean? Is that where you would have your, like, if it's my website, craigcampbellseo.com, what does a custom backend domain mean for me?
So if you want to have your clients work with Flatsite, because that's possible, you can create certain rules and you can assign clients for only like a few websites if you want. Then they cannot see the other websites if you're running like some PBNs next to it or some other client websites. Right. It can be something like client.craigcampbell.co.uk, or it can be static generator.craigcampbell. So it's let's say kind of white labelish. Some people want to have it under their own domain, so we are giving that option as well.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense now. And you don't want your clients seeing all your PBNs and shit like that on there. Do that type of thing. So how long has Flatsite been working for? How long has this been in action for?
Yeah, so we started working on this in 2012, where back then the company that I work for right now, they owned a lot of domain names. I think roughly 200,000 domain names, and most of them was either on short term they tried to sell those domain names, like really high premium.com domain names, and on the other part they had a lot of like AdSense as well, link building pages where they would sell link space and stuff like that. So they basically we needed something that could make a lot of websites fastly, and also the part of maintenance, we wanted to make something that's easy to maintain. And if you want to deploy a lot of different WordPress websites, that's all cool, but you will end up with, you also need to update those WordPress websites, else you get hacked. You're basically then a sitting duck. So that was basically the reason why we created something like a scraper that would basically scrape the page that we built and then basically saved it to static HTML. It was a really dirty way. It didn't have any graphical user interface, so only our developers knew how to use it. And always, if we talk with people, they always ask us like, "Hey, how are you? Having those fast websites? Why are you ranking that well?" and stuff like that. And of course, it was not only about the static site generation, but it was part of it. But we always told them like, "No, this is a secret. We cannot explain you how it works," and blah 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 blah. Eventually we became a hosting company, and we really had a lot of clients that, their websites were hacked. They had like, sometimes they had like a lot of WordPress websites on one shared hosting account that I really thought like, okay, maybe this is also interesting for them. So we started to talk with other people, and they were still interested in a solution like this. So last year we made like a user interface, like a graphical user interface, and we start selling it since this year. So
Interesting.
so commercially we're only active for like half a year, but the software itself was already used since 2012. We built a few thousand websites with it, and right now we have a few clients that are, I think, already above the level that we were back then. So
it looks like a really interesting service, and I want to explain a problem I once had with PBNs. So I used to have massively into PBNs, and I used to have a whole bunch of websites, and they were all in WordPress. And one of the biggest pain points of that was I had to use another tool called Manage WP to just simply update those plugins and stuff like that. And what would happen is a plugin would conflict with something and blow the website up.
yeah.
Now, it didn't notify me that the website was blown up. You'd have to still manually go through and check them all, which was a pain in the ass. Now, is this something? Well, of course, this would eliminate this. Now, if I had a whole bunch of PBNs and I had them on Flatsite and I had them all converted to static websites, I then don't have to worry about updating all those plugins all the time. So, but what if the back end where I'm putting all this information in WordPress, those plugins are not updated, and and stuff like that? So you're still going to have to maintain your WordPress plugins, right, before they're then converted to static. Would that be a fair assumption?
No, you don't really need to. I mean, yeah, if you are missing a certain function, and this is why this plugin is then updated. For instance, with RankMath, you maybe want to have like a certain function, or with Yoast, and then of course you need to update this plugin.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't need to do it because of security reasons. I mean, a lot of people, they are having a plugin, they are, using just the standard functions, and they don't really care about all the updates, the new features and stuff. They are not using it. They're
Yeah.
maybe using, I believe, like, and this is the part what I think sometimes is a bit crappy about WordPress, that is basically, if you need, let's say if you need a transport vehicle with WordPress, you always get a Ferrari, but you don't need that. You don't need that much horsepower. But all the plugins, they have so much functionality, and you're probably only using one or two functionalities of that. The
Yeah.
rest is just slowing your website down. That's the one part I sometimes think like, okay, it's a bit over-engineered sometimes.
So if I had PBNs and it was just like Yoast I had on there just for the title tags and the stuff like that, I would be pretty okay not to update them as regularly as I would, that you would with a standard website. So you'd be a lot safer, and then just have them all over on static websites, which means they're less prone to hacking and all of that kind of stuff, which I think would have been a perfect solution when I was running those PBNs, because the big pain in the butt for me was just Manage WP, trying to update all these plugins, and it was just a massive pain in the ass, and to the point I had to stop it. It was just, I couldn't grow anymore. It was killing me. So if that was out then, I would have loved to have.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, and I think that's I think often if people start with PBMs, they are not really thinking about maintaining the PBN. I mean, building one is already like an art, and but maintaining it is also part of managing your PBN.
Yeah. So no, I like this. Obviously, one thing I want to ask, and it may seem like a really dumb question, but if I was to sign up for Flatsite today and I've got my WordPress website, do I need any technical skills, or is this literally just push a button and it does it all for you?
Yeah, well, the technical skills is I would use a WP importer if you already have an existing website. So there are like tons of free plugins that you can import an existing website through something like Flatsite or to any hosting company at all. But no, it's not really. No, you don't really need to be a tech-savvy user. To be quite frankly, I'm a really crappy developer. I know a little bit around. Like I can play around with source code. I can hide some elements in CSS if I need, and that's really like my only understanding about CSS and HTML. And I can manage a small PBN in Flatsite, so I'm sure that a lot of followers from Ucrack are more savvy than me. They should be able to manage it. Maybe we oversimplified it a bit, because we're doing a lot of WordCamps and WordPress meetups, and people are always talking about Gatsby and some other ways of getting sites static, and it requires a lot of coding, a lot of knowledge. And some people, they just like to play around with the whole technology for days before having their static websites up and running, where this is really like a solution that you can just press a button, you upload, and it's done. Yeah,
that's the kind of solutions that I like. I can't be bothered with fucking around. It needs to be simple and easy. So oversimplified is a good thing, especially for me. So I'm glad you said that. Is there anything else about Flatsite that you would say to people out there? Is there any additional benefits over and above the stuff we've spoken about? What other benefits are there doing this?
Yeah, so we have site speed, we mentioned, right? Just thinking.
Security.
Security is a big thing. I believe it can also save you a lot of cost if you are right now with a traditional WordPress hosting company and you open up like 3 or 4 hosting packages. I mean, having a static website, the benefit is that it's very lightweighted, so you can just internally you can add like 100 websites on one shared hosting account, and it would still run.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. If you're using something like Amazon, you don't need to have a lot of resources for static sites.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, I wanted to tell you about so these dynamic things that will break with static websites. The fun thing is that we are developing a lot of plugins, and we throwing them away for free towards the community. Sorry, I'm trying to make a Dutch saying into English, but I mean we share them with the community. So I mean, for instance, we have a serverless search plugin that's really cool. We just launched it like a month ago. We're basically we're refactoring the search of WordPress, and then instead of using the database, because normally WordPress is using the database, then we are using a JSON file, and this works on all static websites. So we managed to get the search function working again on a static HTML site. That's pretty cool. We really have crazy developers that can do those things. We also have a contact form plugin right now that helps you with any traditional contact forms using an API. So then you can just use Contact Form 7, Gravity Forms, but then on a static website, because that was definitely a thing for a lot of people that wanted to use plugins like that. And I think the third thing right now is that people ask me about WordPress comments, where I still think like, okay, WordPress comments is fun, but it's really getting a lot of spam. And WordPress comments, they also require a database. But we have a good implementation with Facebook comments, for instance. And if you really don't like Facebook, then you can still use. I mean, there are like I think 10 or 20 different services like Discuss or some external service that you can just implement in your website, and you still have the comments functions, and you don't have to worry about spam and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think at the moment those are like the fun things to share.
That's a really good one though, because the WordPress one does get spammed to death, and I think people do use Facebook and various other things, and that is a much less spammed solution. So I like that. That is a good good point.
And I think the one question I get often is like, is Elementor also working on Flatsite? Because nowadays everybody loves Elementor. And basically every plugin in your backend will be running as you're just having WordPress. The only thing that our website is doing is basically the front end. So basically the stuff that people will see is converting that into static HTML.
Yeah.
And we're not converting anything like WP admin, so that still keeps on Flatsite server and not on your live server.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So flatsite.com is the main website for this. You could obviously pick your packages depending on the space and everything that you do require. You obviously have a lot of walkthrough guides, demos, documentation, FAQs, and everything else on there. And you can also get the free trial. So 7-day free trial, no credit cards required. You can basically go on here, try this stuff out.
Yeah, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I just want to say that we have a crazy marketing manager, and she really have like a crazy offer for roundabout Christmas. I think it will start within a few days after this recording, where you have like a crazy discount. So I cannot tell you too much about it yet, but it will be crazy. So if if anybody's interested in something like Flatsite, I would say like take your time now to play around with it and ask our sales team to notify you when we have this Christmas deal, because it will save you a lot of money on the first year.
Yeah, no, people always use this time of year, Christmas time, to look at new tools, new products, new systems, and take advantage, guys. If they've got a deal going on, take full advantage of it. Now, before we do wrap up, if someone wants to reach out and just ask a generic question that we've maybe not covered on this podcast, where is the best place to reach you? What's the best email to get people on? Is it
So I would say you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. You can try, but I keep it a bit personal. But LinkedIn, you can find me. You can use my first name at flatsite.com. There is a contact form on the website. We have a live chat on the website. I'm also sometimes, occupying the live chat. If there are any questions, then we're there. So
the links will be below when this goes live anyway to the website, and we'll put a link to your LinkedIn if someone does have any questions. But I think the website itself has got a lot of FAQs and information on there, so you don't really probably have that. You shouldn't have that many other questions to ask. Obviously, the additional benefits of using a static website and everything is covered on the website. But if you do have something, please do reach out to the guys at Flatsite. So thank you very much, Michael, for taking the time to come on and introduce Flatsite. It does look like a really cool offering, and something I should probably try for some PBNs and stuff like that for sure. It's just going to make my life a little bit easier, I think, more secure, faster, and everything else. So I can't really think of any reasons why you wouldn't want to use it. So I'm definitely going to give it a try as well.
Yeah, Greg, that really means a lot coming from you.
No problem at all. It's been a pleasure having you, man, and hope you, your family, and all the people at Flatsite have a great Christmas.
Yeah, thank you. Same to you and your team, man.